Internal conflict is when a character has a battle within themselves. I believe the most engaging type of internal conflict is the Tug of War type. This conflict gives the character two competing desires that are incompatible, desire A and desire B. Throughout the story, the character will try to have it both ways. However, their choice will pull them closer to one side over the other. They'll either learn that they need to sacrifice one, or they'll have one desire forcibly stripped away from them, sometimes even both. Usually, one desire will be externally rewarding but internally corrupting, while the other desire will be internally rewarding but bring no external reward. That's why this conflict works best with morally gray characters and pessimistic stories. Let's go over some examples, spoilers ahead. In Breaking Bad, Walt's competing desires are be a family man versus be powerful. He starts on the family man side before slowly moving towards the power side as a drug kingpin. His success in the drug game indirectly puts his family in harm's way and directly makes them not want to associate with him. As he makes more choices towards power, his character traits begin to change. He transforms from a cowardly and humble family man to a ruthless, immoral kingpin who will do anything to get what he wants. I don't believe there is a change in belief here, because Walt always had the belief that he was superior and desired power. He just never had the opportunity to act on it until he touched meth. But even without the change in belief, this is still great character development. By the end of the story, his family wants nothing to do with him, leaving him with no way of ever becoming a family man. He ultimately chooses to sacrifice his life and empire to secretly get his money to his family. He may have lost the opportunity to be a family man and gotten a family member killed, but he could at least use his riches to help them. In Better Call Saul, Jimmy's competing desires are be honest versus be deceptive. The first is to impress his brother and prove him wrong. The second is what he innately desires. This is like his superego versus his id. In the story, Jimmy tries to balance being a by-the-book lawyer with being a con man, but after pivotal events, he goes completely to his innate desires and becomes a criminal lawyer for the cartel. His desire for honesty completely vanishes, and like Walt, it changes his character traits, making him more performative and colder. Even when he gets a second chance at life, he goes back to conning, as if he can't help it. But similar to Walt, at the end of his story, he makes one last effort to go back to the good desire when he confesses all of his crimes to show that he can overcome his nature. Snowfall is similar to Breaking Bad. Franklin becomes a drug kingpin, split between his desire to get rich and his desire to help his community and family. Unfortunately, the two mix like water and oil. He gets money by selling crack to black people, which means his business is directly hurting his community. This gives him cognitive dissonance. He occasionally complains about the black struggle and criticizes a black officer for helping the enemy and not the community, but he fails to see how his rock primarily damages his own community. Even after his love interest gets hooked on drugs, he still continues the business, moving further and further away from his community desire. Family becomes the primary competing desire, but even that stands no chance, because the business naturally divides them due to greed. This results in them turning on each other, and fatalities. By the end of his story, he has neither riches or his family. He tried to chase two rabbits and was left with nothing. The way this internal struggle transformed Franklin was visceral. He went from a book-smart, naive kid to a ruthless businessman who was willing to kill his enemies, subordinates, allies, and even family if they ever crossed him. In Dune Part 2, Paul's competing desires are don't manipulate the Fremen versus win the war with the Fremen. There's a prophecy that his people made that established him as a messiah in order to manipulate the people of Arrakis. Paul's morality prevented him from taking advantage of the people he was living with, despite their desire for him to live up to the messianic title. However, he wanted to win the war against Caladan, and it would be difficult to unite everyone unless he attained the Lisan al-Gaib title. By the end of the movie, he completely sacrifices his desire to remain honest and leans into the prophecy, allowing him to be victorious over Caladan. He goes from a humble member of the group to a confident and charismatic leader. This sacrifice loses him Chani, his love interest. In Revenge of the Sith, Anakin struggled between be a Jedi versus save Padme. He had a vision that his love interest would die and he wanted to save her, but the way of the Jedi was to let go of attachments and allow her time to come. Palpatine provided Anakin with an alternative, a Force technique that could save her life. The only problem is that he'd have to become a Sith in order to learn it, sacrificing his Jedi status and morality. His choice to report Palpatine to Mace Windu moved him towards the Jedi desire, but his betrayal of Mace Windu firmly placed him on the Sith side. He had hints of darkness before, but after his choice, he became completely dark, strangling the lover he was doing all of this for, fighting his mentor and brother figure to the death. The last example is Spider-Man 2, which is more optimistic compared to the rest. Peter's desires are be a hero versus be happy. His duty as Spider-Man causes him to lose his job, fall behind in class, and break promises to friends. Being a hero is directly preventing him from being happy in life. He eventually chooses not to be a hero so that he can be happy. He gets that happiness for a while, but then he remembers why he chose to be a hero in the first place, regaining the belief that his duty as a hero trumps his personal happiness. He sacrifices his opportunity to be with his love interest to continue being a hero, but in an optimistic twist, she chooses to be with him anyway. The internal struggle has a full circle arc that I discussed in my character arc video. This tug of war internal struggle is so fascinating because it forces a character to choose between two equal desires, thus showing which they value more. When it's a super ego versus id type of conflict, it shows how characters are tempted into chasing their natural desires. The way character traits and personalities change over the course of the story creates mesmerizing character development. In a classic character arc involving a change in beliefs, it usually doesn't come with a change in personality, but these internal struggles do. It's always shocking to see the before and after. These stories show how you can't always have it both ways.